This happened in the summer of 2018. I was 24 at the time and had just graduated with a degree in forestry. I managed to land a seasonal job with a conservation group in the Appalachian Mountains, specifically working on trail maintenance and land surveying in a remote part of North Carolina. The job was perfect for someone like me who didn't mind being alone. My task was to spend 4 days a week out in the backcountry, clearing brush, repainting the white blazes on the trees that marked the trails, and checking the condition of the remote shelters. I would hike out on Tuesday morning, camp on the trail for 3 nights, and hike back to the trailhead on Friday afternoon. For the first 2 months, it was incredible. The scenery was stunning, and I rarely saw another soul except for the occasional long-distance hiker passing through. But as the season moved into late July, I started noticing things that felt slightly out of place. It began with the trail markers. I'd be hiking a stretch I had just cleared the week before, and I'd find that the white blazes on the trees had been scratched off. Or worse, someone had painted new, fake blazes leading away from the main path and into the dense, rhododendron-choked ravines. I assumed it was just bored teenagers or some eccentric local trying to mess with hikers. I'd spend my morning repainting the correct markers and moving on. But then, I started finding the offerings. Every Wednesday night, I camped at a specific spot called Deep Gap. It was a small, flat clearing near a spring. One morning, I woke up and walked over to the spring to filter some water, and sitting right on the flat rock where I usually knelt was a small, hand-carved wooden whistle. It was beautifully made, but the wood looked fresh, like it had been carved only hours before. I looked around the clearing, but the woods were silent. I didn't see any footprints other than my own. I kept the whistle and tucked it into my pack, thinking maybe a hiker had left it behind for a thank you for my work on the trail. But the next week, at a completely different campsite 10 miles away, I found something else. This time, it was a small pile of wild berries neatly arranged on top of my bear canister. There was also a small polished river stone sitting in the center of the berries. That's when the peaceful feeling of the woods started to evaporate. Someone wasn't just passing through. They were following my specific work schedule. They knew exactly where I would be sleeping each night. On a Thursday in early August, I was working on a steep section of the trail near a place called Devil's Courthouse. It was a humid, foggy day, and the visibility was poor. As I was using my loppers to clear some overhanging branches, I heard a voice call out from the fog behind me. "You're doing a fine job with those trees, son." I jumped and turned around. Standing about 20 feet away on a higher ledge was a man. He looked to be in his 60s, wearing a faded flannel shirt and heavy canvas trousers. He didn't have a backpack or any hiking gear, not even a water bottle. He was just standing there, leaning against a tree, watching me. I pulled my headphones down and gave him a polite nod. "Thanks. It's a lot of work this time of year with the rain." He didn't smile. He just kept staring. "I've been watching you work for a while now. You're much more thorough than the last one they sent up here." I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. "The last guy? You mean Mark? He was here 2 years ago." "Mark," he repeated as if tasting the name. "Yes, Mark didn't like the gifts I left him. He threw them in the creek. I hope you're more appreciative." I didn't know how to respond to that. I just mumbled something about having to get back to work and started moving down the trail. I didn't look back, but I could feel his eyes on me until I rounded the next bend. That night, I didn't stay at my planned campsite. I hiked an extra 5 miles in the dark using my headlamp and set up my tent in a dense thicket of pines far off the trail. I didn't light a fire. I just sat in the dark listening to the woods. Every time a branch snapped or the wind shifted, my heart would skip a beat. Around 2 a.m., I heard a sound that made me go completely cold. It was the sound of that wooden whistle I had found. It was distant, coming from the direction of the trail I had just left, but it was clear. A long, low note that sounded almost like a bird call, but not quite. It blew 3 times, then stopped. The next morning, I hiked back to my truck as fast as I could. When I reached the trailhead, I saw a small piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. My heart sank. I thought it would be a note from the man, but when I opened it, it wasn't a note. It was a page torn from a ledger book. It was a list of dates and times. It started from the very first week I'd taken the job. June 12th, 10:45 a.m., arrived at Trailhead, blue truck. June 13, 6:15 p.m., set up camp at Deep Gap, red for 2 hours. June 20, 12:30 p.m., ate lunch at the Overlook, apple and peanut butter. The list went on for 2 pages, documenting my every move for the entire summer. The last entry was from the night before, August 9th, 8:45 p.m., left the trail, hiding in the pines. Very clever. I drove straight to the ranger station and showed the head ranger the list. He looked at it for a long time, his face turning pale. He told me that there had been stories for years about a man who lived in the dead zones of the forest, areas where no trails went and the terrain was too rough for most people. The locals called him the Surveyor. They said he was a former park employee who lost his mind years ago after a tragedy and stayed in the woods, obsessed with maintaining the land his own way. The rangers sent a team up to the area, but they found nothing. No camp, no man, no signs of a permanent residence. However, they did find a small blind made of branches and moss overlooking the trailhead where I parked my truck. Inside the blind, they found a pair of high-powered binoculars and a stack of my discarded snack wrappers neatly folded and organized by date. I didn't go back for the rest of the season. I took a job at a plant nursery in the city and tried to put the whole thing behind me. But a few months later, in the middle of winter, I received a small package in the mail. There was no return address. Inside was a single, small wooden carving of a blue truck. It was my truck, down to the dent in the rear bumper. Attached to it was a small tag with the same precise ledger-style handwriting. It simply said, "The trails are getting overgrown. We miss you." I moved out of my apartment and changed my name on social media shortly after that. I don't work in forestry anymore. I have a desk job now in a building with security guards and cameras. But sometimes, when I'm driving home late at night and I see the dark silhouette of the mountains against the sky, I think about the white blazes on the trees. I wonder who's painting them now, and if they know they're being watched by someone who never leaves the woods.